Hello everyone, welcome to our second floor exhibition hall at the Art Museum. Today I will introduce you our ongoing project Me Beuys. Every 4 months since 2019 December, our curatorial team and curator Xiyun invites a Chinese artist to engage in a sort of a dialogue with our permanent exhibition of the Joseph Beuys's work, what you can see here. Since the cultural opening in the 1970s and the cultural art movement in 1985, the younger generation of Chinese artists was seeking for cultural enlightenment and the new ways of artistic expression. In the middle of 1980s, there was an exhibition in Beijing of works of Robert Rauschenberg. This exhibition presented to the public the new idea of the concept of the ready-made, and it raises a question: what is art and what its possibilities could be? These works, what Chinese artists back that time saw in the exhibition space, had a great impact on them. And since then, they started to research more and more into into Western art history, into Western contemporary art, into Western modern art. Back then, around late 1980s, 1990s, more and more Chinese artists discovered for them Beuys's legacy, Beuys's artworks and his ideas. More and more of Chinese artists discovered and explored ideas of Joseph Beuys, accepting him as one of the cornerstones of contemporary art. His creation has been widely discussed and quoted. Beuys's thoughts that art should not be isolated from the social and even political life, and that art has power to change our life and society. His actions expanded concept of art, ideas that everyone is an artist, and the concept of social sculpture had a great impact for Chinese artists ever since. In 2011, the director of Chinese Academy of Fine Arts Art Museum, Mr. Wang Huanshan, decided to organize and initiate the first exhibition of Joseph Beuys's artworks in China. This exhibition was based on the collection of German collector Mr. Michael Bergman's works. During the preparation of the exhibition, curatorial team faced numerous of challenges, problems, and many setbacks. However, in 2 years, in 2013, the exhibition finally opened. It was titled Social Sculpture Beuys in China. The main aim of that exhibition was to show and introduce the Chinese scholars' research and their approach to understanding of Beuys's legacy, as well as to show to Chinese public this the art of this maybe a bit mysterious but very influential figure of contemporary artists. They did it in a very detailed and a very accessible way by doing numerous translations. Back that time, the team of Art Museum also participated in an organization of exhibition Social Sculpture, along with a team from Beijing University. In 2018, in Art Museum, the exhibition entitled Lettres de Wayang, Namjoon Paik and Joseph Beuys took place. After this exhibition, Art Museum curatorial team decided to put around 200 artworks on a permanent display here on the second floor for public and for scholars to observe and study. Here you can see numerous prints, photographs, Beuys's vitrines, Beuys's multiples, as well as 2 videos, 2 documentations of his radical performance. As Mark Rosenthal said, Beuys wrote, "It's not about rules, but about transgression." By inviting artists whose artwork has connection with social interaction, we hope to be able to find new ways of interpretation of their work and find new connections between their art creation, the creation and ideas of Joseph Beuys, and also connections with our today's life. The first artist who is participating in the project Me Beuys is Zhou Xiaohu, with his artwork titled A Detective Project, How to Chase One's Tail Training. Zhou Xiaohu was born in 1960s, and he belongs to the generation who experienced the consequences of Cultural Revolution, and then after this, in 1980s, the policy of economic reforms and openness of the country in 1980s. Zhou Xiaohu's artistic creation always shows his inner reflection within a wider political and social context. Also, it shows his reflection on dominant ideologies and economic policies of different countries. In his art, he shows a world where technology plays a major role, as well as the media often used as a tool for public influence. He often, for his expression, he always used allegories, metaphors, and surreal narratives. All of that to make us question our reality and the world we live in. Zhou Xiaohu studied painting, sculpture, and graphic design. Late in 1998, he started to use computers in his artistic practice. He was one of the first contemporary Chinese artists who started to work with claymation, as well as using sculptural ideas for his animation in videos. He's one of the most famous and most prolific Chinese artists nowadays, who working with a lot of different mediums, from painting, sculpture, photography to video animation, and of course installation, what we see in here. Here we can see an artwork of Zhou Xiaohu called A Detective Project. It's a huge installation, consists of 50 TVs, we can see here. And then behind we see 42 images of photos and notes what been taken from the detectives themselves. This project was implemented by Zhou Xiaohu in 2008. Back then, after research in the internet, he discovered and found 10 detective agencies. He contacted them, signed contracts, and paid service fee. The task, what he gave them, was very common for what the detective agencies is doing. Basically, he asked them to trace one target in a specific place in a fixed period of time. The artists form a sort of a chain of surveillance in such a way that the detective from the first agency had to tell a detective from the second one. The second go after the third, and so on. And the 10th had to trace a detective from the first agency. And hence, all 10 detectives would form a rear end tracking loop. Of course, the agency didn't know that they were participating in some sort of a stage performance, and that their detectives were hired to trace colleagues from other agencies. The real action happened on 19th of August in 2008. That time, 10 detectives came to one place. It was a shopping mall near Junshan Park. In the shopping mall, it was 10 floors, and Zhou Xiaohu was there, staying on the top floor and looking overseas what detective was doing. Of course, he was nervous at the time because he didn't know how his idea will unfold. What happened if somebody from detectives would discover they have been followed? At the end, indeed, 2 detectives discovered that somebody was chasing them, but one detective actually found out that the target that he was following actually followed another one. But nobody was able to discover the whole design of Zhou Xiaohu. The detective project is an action-based work, and it's made possible by existing rules of society. In this sense, the rules of society was used by Zhou Xiaohu as ready-mades in his creation. Zhou Xiaohu used the rules of detective business as his ready-made resources. After this live action, he collected all the data, all the tracking notes, all the photos, or all the videos, and created this installation, what we see. But I think it's important to notice that Zhou Xiaohu hoped by creating an installation in circular shape, it would remind us of a media well or maybe media trap. Zhou Xiaohu created a space where everyone is collecting information of somebody else, yet at the same time everybody's information was collected by someone. It's a sort of information loop, whereas that feeds on itself. Nothing comes in from outside, but nothing comes out either. It's like an information bubble. Even though Zhou Xiaohu used already outdated technologies in this piece, but this piece still addresses a very important issues of our today. How we exist in a world where video surveillance, 5G, artificial intelligence, AI and AGI become a common thing. Even here at the museum, you can ask yourself this question. Are you an observer, or maybe have you been observed? Okay, that's it. Hope to see you one day at the Howard Museum. Meanwhile, stay safe and wish you a good day.